Today we're going to be talking about the food web system in the rainforest. Now, I do have to start off by talking about the difference between a food chain and a food web. And they are very related to each other because food chains make up the food web. A food chain basically shows how energy moves from one species to another as food sources. So it starts from the very bottom and works itself all the way to the top. And that's going to be the natural big predator out there in that system. A food web is a connection of all of those different food chains in an environment. So today, for the rainforest, all the different food chains out in the rainforest connected together to make up that whole system. Now with me, I have a green iguana, and her name is Clingy. Clingy is naturally found out in the rainforest in South America. And Clingy's food chain is going to consist of a couple different levels. So it's going to start off at a very base level with different types of plants. Green iguanas really like to eat things like any vegetation they can find, dried leaves, dried lettuce. They're also going to eat stuff like vegetables and fruits. So that's the bottom of the food chain for a green iguana. The next step is going to be that green iguana on the food chain. They will be getting all their energy and their food source from those vegetables, fruits, dried vegetation that they find. And they're going to take all of that in. But just like most species of animals and plants out there, even green iguanas have their own natural predators. They are not the apex predator. And an apex predator is just an animal at the top of the food chain that has no natural predators itself. So for Clingy, her predators may be different things like birds of prey, so things like hawks and owls, as well as some small mammals like foxes. And those are the animals that are going to be hunting green iguanas to get their energy and get their food source from those green iguanas. And all of those systems together out there in the rainforest are what's making that food web out there. Now the food web and food chains can be very fragile. Things can be introduced that actually affects them. So something that could affect the food chain of a green iguana like Clingy could be something like deforestation. Getting rid of those trees that green iguanas naturally like to live in because they are arboreal, which means they like to climb, they like to live in elevated areas. They also have something really cool on top of their head called a parietal eye, and it helps them detect predators from above. So like those natural hawks and owls that may try to prey on them, that parietal eye is known as somewhat of a third eye that lets them detect that those animals are coming. And that's a really cool adaptation since they are arboreal and like to live up in those trees. Now with deforestation, if they are knocking down those trees or killing off the species of plants and vegetables and fruit that green iguanas like to eat, that could lead to a drop in the natural population of green iguanas. And then that is in turn going to affect the number of birds of prey out there like those hawks and owls that also rely on green iguanas as sources of food. So that's going to completely break the food chain, which is going to affect the food web in general because all of those species are dropping, which means there's not enough to support the chains and food webs out there. Now green iguanas are naturally found in the rainforest, but some populations have been found here in the United States. There's some in Florida, some in Texas, and also some in Hawaii. The ones in Florida were thought to have come over on boats by sneaking onto them and also riding on rafts. They're also very strong swimmers, so they may have been able to swim part of the way too. There are some marine iguanas that can actually dive to get food as well if they need to. But the populations that are in Texas and Hawaii are actually more because of people having them as pets. As you can see, Clingy is a somewhat bigger animal, although coming to us, she did not come from a great home scenario, so her size is actually stunted. She is not as big as she should be because she was not in a big enough home where she was being taken care of before. But since they can get so big, they also rely on a lot of different things that can be a lot for people who want to try to have them as pets. They rely on very hot temperatures and a lot of humidity because out there in the rainforest, the humidity is really high. So animals that live in it need the humidity with them. But a lot of pet owners don't necessarily know about that before they get them. They also don't know that they may get as big as they get, And sometimes their food can be a little bit expensive because they like to eat better and healthier than us sometimes too. Now we did get Clingy. You can also see a little bit on her face here. She does have a little bit of a cleft palate, which means some of her mouth there is missing a little bit. And that was actually because Clingy was found, and where she was found, she was being fed cat food, which has no nutritional value for them at all. So that's why Clingy is one of our favorites here. We do like to take care of her, give her all those nutrients that she needs. And something very big with any animal that you have, even with dogs and cats, is that you always want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into before you adopt that animal. You want to make sure you have all the right supplies and do all of your research so that you can properly take care of them and give them a happy and great life. Now, if anyone does end up wanting to touch Clingy at all, she's very friendly. We're just going to take 2 fingers right on her side here. She may feel a little bit rough. Sometimes their skin is described as almost feeling like chain link. And sometimes you can see her breathe as well. She does like to make very funny faces at people, so you are more than welcome to look at her face. I just ask that you don't touch her anywhere besides her side with those 2 fingers.